Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the award ceremony for the Northeast Arts District. My name is Michael Rainville. I'll be your MC tonight. And I want to start off by thanking some people who really made this whole evening possible. And ironically, I wanted to surprise some of the Sheridan neighborhood people because I wanted to recognize Jenny Fortman, Joy, and Bob Sword for all your effort to keep the Ritz alive and to, first of all, birth it and keep it going. So it's really great to see you tonight and enjoy all the hard work that you did. So thank you. I also want to thank Theater La Di Da. This is their building, and they're doing a great job being the heart and soul of the visual arts here in Northeast. Peter Rosling could not make it tonight, but we're going to hear from Rudy, one of the actors, who actually lives in Northeast. And Michelle Worcester was not able to make it, but I wanted to thank her for all her help in welcoming us into the building. And Michaela, who is our sound and light tech tonight. Let's have a round of applause for Michaela. So we're going to get on with our award show, and it's going to be a very appropriate time to honor those giants whose shoulders we all stand on. The Northeast Arts District was just a gleam in someone's eyes. In fact, I saw Paul Ostro here. When Paul was a council member, he got the funding from McKnight to create the plan that established NEMA and the Arts District. And how fast does 16 years go? It's amazing. But I wanted to call upon the stage Rudy. And I had a chance to chat with Rudy. I love it when people who work in Northeast and recreate in Northeast live in Northeast. And Rudy is our neighbor from St. Anthony East. And if you could just give us your thoughts on this great theater and what it's like to live and work in this great neighborhood.
I can do that. Great. Good evening, everyone. My full name is Rodolfo Nieto. I'm known in the area around as Rudy. I've been a resident here for about 10 years. I'm an actor and singer, and I've been able to work numerous times with Theater La Di Da here in a number of productions. And the Ritz Theater, this theater and this community, remains one of my favorite places to live, to work, to see shows, to see art, and to also get a chance to meet the people in my neighborhood, as I heard on Sesame Street ages ago. So first I got to say, I love this neighborhood. And it's the only neighborhood I've ever lived in since I came to Minneapolis. I come from Chicago originally, and I moved here to work with Minnesota Opera, which is just across the river. But I was based here, and at the opera was the first time I met Peter Rothstein, the artistic director here. And it's also where I met my wife, the woman who became my wife, who happened to be living 2 blocks away from where I was living in Northeast. It was very convenient. And very convenient. And together, we explored all the arts in the area, the restaurants, the theater scene, everything here. When we decided to marry, we got married right down the street at Northeast Social, which is also where we became engaged. And on the wall was one of Nicholas Harper's paintings, which is now hanging in our living room. She was a witness to our wedding, and it just reminds us every day about the prevalence and the importance of the arts in our community. I was asked to speak on behalf of La Di Da today on the impact of the arts, the importance of the arts to this neighborhood, as well as the importance to somebody like me who is both a resident and an actor in the area. The arts have the beautiful ability to draw people in. And I saw that firsthand a week ago at Rogue Buddha Gallery, Nicholas Harper's gallery, where a couple who were bar hopping down 13th were mesmerized by what they saw in the window displays, and if you walk by, it can be very shocking. And I was in there, and I talked them into coming inside, and they did. I think they thought I was an employee, that I was trying to sell them something. That wasn't the case. I was just very eager and excited about the work, but they came in anyway. So already the neighborhood has that draw. We also have Art World. We know that how popular and powerful that is to our community. But even beyond that, year-round, we, the residents here, seek out the work of our neighbors, of the artists in the area. We seek out their inspiration. We spend time in their studios, in their galleries. We spend time in their cafes, in the restaurants, breweries, and distilleries, the many that we have around here. And we spend time in the theater, just observing and absorbing the messages they have, chatting with each other, and connecting to one another. And each time we do so, we strengthen our ties to this neighborhood, and we invest in it and in each other. And perhaps that is clearest in the advocacy I see that artists have towards one another. If you see a show here at the Ritz Theater, you'll find food and drink from local establishments like Serdik's Cheese Shop, which is where I also work part-time, Sleepy V's, and Aki's Bread House. Artists present other artists' work in their galleries, and oftentimes you can find in these studios 2 or 3 different artists sharing a space, working together side by side. And I'll think about that just for a minute, how wonderful that is. It's a wonderful reflection to me of how we wish to see our neighborhood. We have neighbors working alongside each other, promoting each other's work, supporting each other, learning from each other, striving to create something greater than our individual selves. The arts remind us of that. And though our neighborhood clearly benefits economically from the arts, I know the restaurants are making a killing with the theater being here. More importantly, the arts teach us how to listen to one another and how to share the same space and how we can thrive together. Now, this building in particular, as Michael mentioned, is kind of the heart of Northeast, and I agree with that, even in my short tenure here of 10 years. But this is a neighborhood theater. This is really a worldwide, I feel, acclaimed theater, at least a nationwide acclaimed theater. It's still a neighborhood theater, and it has been in the entire almost 100 years of history of its existence. 1926 was when it was first built and opened. And it served the community throughout its long and storied history, offering Polish films in its infancy for the Polish neighborhood, for the Polish community, offering concerts and movies, providing a home for cricket theater in the 70s. I happened to meet Bill Siemens one time by happenstance over at Serdik's Cheese Shop. We talked about it, it was great. Showing Asian films in the 80s, offering Dance with Ballet of the Dolls in the 2000s, and now we are truly so fortunate that it is a home of one of the greatest musical theater venues in the region, perhaps the nation, that offers thrilling and engaging programming for audiences through its productions, that resonate with our community as it exists right now, with all the challenges we have right now. Here within these walls, we are invited, all of us are invited, as the generations have been invited long before us in this building, to convene and learn together, to laugh, to cry, to rage, to rock out, to sing, and to communicate with one another. And this, as it is a neighborhood theater, this is our stage. It's our forum, and it's a place where all of us can have a voice and be heard. The arts brought me to Northeast Minneapolis, and I will forever be grateful for that. As our neighborhood changes, the arts will continue to be the foremost catalyst for both the preservation and the metamorphosis of our identity. We are connected to the generations before us through the arts, as we are connected to those who are yet to come. Most of all, we are connected to each other right now. And here in the arts, we are home. And all are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. I'd like to call Josh Bloch, the fearless leader of the Northeast Arts District, up here. And while he's coming up, could I have all the board members of the district stand up and just wave so you can be recognized as well? Where are y'all? Hi, there's Margot. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys, for all coming here tonight. It really is important for us to have this third biannual Vision Awards, and I would say that it's just an amazing sort of thing to be able to recognize the people that got us from point A to point B. I mean, the people that we're going to be honoring tonight, I've thought about it as probably everybody in this room has had an experience that the people that are being honored tonight they helped us in one way or another, whether we had our art in their galleries, whether we had rented space from them, whether they just had a general conversation with us about life. These people were a really big part of our lives in our careers of what we do here. And being that the third set of visionary people, there's a lot of great visionary people in this community, and it's great to be able to have a little moment to honor them, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the evening where we're actually being able to talk about that. I have one fun little note in making the Visionary Awards, where it's a Great Northeast sort of thing, where Smart Set helped us make the actual signage for the award, and then we had Tom Menke made the little banners for the pieces there, and Cywick was also the woodworker. So we tried to source it all from Northeast here to make it a real sort of concept. So thank you very much for coming, and we will have our continuing parts. Thank you.
So our first award tonight is going to go to Walt Dziedzic, and we're going to have a marvelous poem read by Doug Padilla, who is actually one of the giants of the Arts District, whose shoulders we stand on. And I just wanted to say a couple words about Walt. I had a great chance to get to know him. He played baseball and football at Edison with my father, and as he was in office and I'd want favors for the neighborhood, he would always say no the first time, but eventually he would come around. And he was, his life was shaped by his experience growing up fatherless. He always had a soft spot in his heart for kids. And he was an amazing, amazing man. 14 years as a Minneapolis police officer, 22 years as a city council member. And when he went into retirement, he saw this great need for the park system to help children. So he ran for office and served 12 years as a park commissioner. He was just a great man. And Doug, with his incredible talents, has written a poem about Walt. But we have to have you wear this one.
Edison High School colors. You know, I would just add that I think it's important not only to think of the history of the community, of the arts community in Northeast, and of our heroes and the people that have done so much for the community, but as an elder now, I think it's really important to remember those that have passed on to the other side, to remember those that have lived and died and worked here. Walt Dziedzic, great benefactor of the arts. So it was God so long ago, like way back in the 90s somewhere. Dave Felker, Northeast artist, furniture refinisher, gallery owner, the International Gallery of Contemporary Art in the Thorpe Building, said to me that we should start an arts crawl here in Northeast, just like the one he had been part of in Anchorage, and that it would instigate the onset of a golden age for Minneapolis and the arts. So I said, no thanks, not interested. Northeast ain't Anchorage. And I proceeded to tell him that he might be doing fine in the Thorpe, but some of us artists holed up in our studios, legally and illegally living there, were pretty much getting rousted by the cops on a regular basis. And I told him how Bill Wormley and Acme Visual Arts, the best alternative art space in Minnesota history, in my humble opinion, and the much earlier predecessor to the Anchor on 13th. How Bill and his crew had to process getting busted by the narc squad every 2 months when they had an opening for a new artist. That's right, the cops would show up and close us down for God knows what reason. But somehow, Dave talked me into the concept because he was good at that. And I went and found some of my artist friends like Bumpy Dave Munson and Perry Ingley and Lisa Elias and such. And we started meeting at Dave's space in the Thorpe, and Art-A-Whirl was born out of all that ruckus, and Nima was born out of a bit of overenthusiasm, and we were off to a flying start. Except we had no idea what we were doing. We were winging it on vision and energy and just darn good vibes, because it was hard work and lots of fun, and lots of art was going on. But as the first celebration came near, we had two worries. First, we had almost no money to do much of anything. And second, we needed to know that the authorities wouldn't hassle us in our studios, in our galleries and businesses, at our parties. We needed to know that they would leave us alone. That's when Dave had his second bad idea. He decided to go to Walt Dziedzic, former Minneapolis cop and our councilman in Northeast, and have a talk. He thought that Walt and the city government would surely get behind our sterling efforts, that they would buy into our art saves the world paradigm. I thought he was nuts. I mean, Walt Dziedzic, ex-cop and the mayor of Northeast, which, yes, actually was his nickname. Cynic that I was, I thought there's no way that we should let City Hall, and especially Walt, know what we're up to. But Dave, the pure of heart, the ambitious, prevailed. And next thing you know, Dougie, that's me, Dougie, was cruising around Northeast with Walt in his big old honking caddy, while he told me stories of where he had grown up, and where his friends drank, and who had gone to Edison with him, and this and that and the other. And yes, I had a good old time hanging with Walt that day, and then the next day we pitched him for help for our fledgling art celebration. And wouldn't you know that he totally understood that artists were the new immigrants to Northeast and his new constituents, and by week's end, we had $20,000 for buses to run between buildings for all our patrons, and we had money for posters, money for musicians, money for all the necessary makings of a fledgling arts weekend event. And wouldn't you know, Walt made sure that there wasn't going to be any problems for us with the police. Well, we never actually talked about that too much, wink, wink, nod, nod. And thus we worked hard, and the end of the first Art World came, and we partied hard in our spaces, and we all thought it was a great success, and let's do it again next year. So, my Lord, we owed so much all those first years to one good and great ongoing benefactor, and his name was Walt Dziedzic. God bless him forever. God bless Walt Dziedzic, the mayor of Northeast. God bless Walt Dziedzic, patron of the arts. This side says Walt.
Carrie, can we come up and give you our awards here? So I'm going to read this, Carrie. The Vision Award from the Northeast Arts District for leadership and commitment in the service of arts, artists, culture in the Northeast Minneapolis Arts District. Thank you, Walt Dziedzic. And there are only two hats in the world, so we have one for you and one for your mother. You gotta have three hands here.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Carrie, so I'm Walt's daughter, and I want to thank Doggin for his poem that was published in the Northeast, and I know Nick Kiley is here, and he also did a nice little story, and that was very heartfelt to my family. My mom and sister are here, so we thank all of you. We truly appreciate it. I remember when Art World started, he took me through John and Jennifer's building, and we looked at art, and we talked about the depth of the art and the contrast, and it was pretty fun. He may not have had, Doug and his friends had that vision, but he ran with it. He saw, as someone else said, he saw that this could be, the arts in this community could really be a catalyst for growing Northeast and really making the East Side a welcoming place. That it was to him, he was from an immigrant family, and it was to him, these were the new immigrants. And so he welcomed them to Northeast and saw the potential. And if you look at where we are now, I think it is just amazing. It has really helped, and it is truly, the creative industry is truly what is making and keeping Minneapolis on the map. He turned it over to Councilmember Ostro, who then ran with it, and then Councilmember Wright took it even further. And so thank both of you for continuing that work to make this happen. My father, everything to him was family, friends, and Northeast. And he would look around the room and see so many of you he considered friends. So we truly appreciate this. Thank you.
So our next award winners, if I could ask them to come up on stage, Frank and Lynn. And I met Frank, Stone, and Lynn Olson back when they opened their gallery on 2nd and 13th, and I can't remember how many years ago that was. And I had the pleasure of serving with Lynn. Lynn was the chair of the Ritz Theater for quite a while, and you were a firm but fair chairwoman. and Frank, I know Lynn doesn't want you to speak tonight, but I was hoping to get Lynn's permission to just have a couple words about what it's like to come and help develop this wonderful little arts community.
From Frank, right?
And you as well. Someone's got to be first.
Well, good evening, everybody, and this award comes with astonishment from me, because when I started in Northeast, we just bought a building and opened a gallery, 1997, 98. And there was just one other gallery over on Central, I think, and nothing else really, no restaurants, nothing. And I said I wanted to name it Frank Stone Gallery, and Frank said, "Oh no, let's call it something like Upper Midwest something or other." And I said, "Don't be silly. It's about you. He's an artist. I wanted to show Northeast artists because I thought that would be a great, fun way of getting to know people. But I wanted to call it Frank Stone Gallery because I wanted him to be known." 6 months later, we'd already been up and running and doing well and had a number of articles written about us. And we're at a party. And it was an artist who was giving this party, and she had a number of people from the media. And at some point, she introduced Frank to, I think it was a Star Trib reporter. And she said, "This is Frank Stone." And he said, "The Frank Stone?" And I went like this. So all I would like to say is that we have had the most wonderful, wonderful 20 plus years here in Northeast. And as I look out and see my dear Sheridan neighborhood people, I remember the days of the Modern Cafe, Jim and Patty Grell, meeting in surreptitiously, let's just put it that way, to try and oust the owners, or the people who were on the board of the current, I can't remember even what they were called. Stay, that's right, yeah. They wanted to stay like things were, and the biggest thing they wanted to do was to tear down the Ritz and build a parking lot. Does that sound like a song? And we were very opposed to that, among other things that they didn't like, and particularly they didn't like artists. And so I can remember those meetings. They were so fun because we all felt like we were creating something, which we were. And we actually had to go to city council and get their permission to make that change. The people who were involved in it, most of them are sitting here tonight. And they, along with a few others, particularly Tom Taylor, who I'd like to mention, because a lot of you did know Tom, and he was the ultimate in neighborhood building. Tom died, how long has it been now? 6, 7 years? Yeah. Maybe longer. Yeah? And I still miss his riding his bike by our gallery and saying, "Hey, Judge Lynn, I'm a retired judge." And that was infinitely funny for some reason to Tom, that I was involved with artists. And I should just add one thing about that. When I retired and was in the gallery, a reporter talked to me writing a story for the Tribune, Star Trib. And he asked me, aren't you going to miss all those defendants? I said, not really. You know, artists are an awful lot like defendants. I went on to describe that, but I won't do it for you tonight. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the award, and I really appreciate being here and being with so many dear, dear friends.
I don't know who it's harder to follow, Walt or Lynn. Well, what she told me not to say, I'm going to say anyway. And that was, the way we started here, and I'll try and make it quick, I can be loquacious, was I couldn't find a gallery that would show my art. I'd shown in many places, fancy places, Manhattan, Sydney, Long Island, whatever, and I couldn't get a show in Minneapolis. So what I was doing was I was renting a vacant space somewhere and having a show, renting it for a month, having a party, a little jazz, a little booze, and showing my work. And then, I'd only really use it for a week. So we started looking in Northeast, and we found that place on 2nd Street, and it was the little gallery that I had my eye on. And no sooner did we get it, and I started dreaming about having a show, than Lynn started tacking people on, which was great. And I think the first one was Jack Becker, who's since died. And that's how it started, and then Lynn took over, and that was that. All I had to do was come to the show, and it's been a pleasure. I love the neighborhood. We've got so many nice friends, so many young friends. It's makes it easier to get older. Thank you.
Thank you. Come over here to the mic. Okay. There you go. Thank you. So I'm going to ask Councilmember Kevin Wright to come up and introduce our next award winners, Jennifer and John. But since we're telling tales here, Jennifer, remember when we went to the city council, you were the head of the Botno neighborhood, I was St. Anthony West, and we told the city council that they had to make the right choice and appoint the new snow board. And sure enough, the next day, Angie Reed, one of the old state members, God bless her, she's gone, but she called up my mother and told my mother to yell at me for deserting the neighborhood for these new kooky young people. So that was great. But our next speaker is Kevin Wright. And Kevin, it's such a pleasure to have you come and help. I think about the times when we first met when you were running the Holland neighborhood, and we decided that what Northeast needed was bike trails, public safety, and artists. And sure enough, here we are today. So Kevin, take it away.
Well, it's been great to hear the stories of the early days of the art district that we so cherish and love. And of course, it's a reminder not of just good times and great enthusiasm and sort of that seat of the pants moment that can energize a community. It also reminds us that things just don't happen. People have to work together. They have to be determined. They have to give their gift to make it happen. And you don't always know exactly where it'll develop into, but you do know that the energy and care that you share and receive from your fellow people in the early days of a community will mean something meaningful if you stick to it and trust each other and work together. And another example of how this community has grown is the spaces have developed. I mean, this theater is just a fantastic example of a couple fits and starts, but we stuck to it, and now it's this world-class theater in our midst, but as was stated so well, still a community theater. I think the early spaces, the California building, I think the Thorpe building was mentioned. Who doesn't know the Northrop King building? But for me, the early days started with the California building. And even there, within that building, it wasn't just instantly, ta-da, an art space. It was a very funky old building that needed some really funky, clever people to turn it around into an art space. And it wasn't instantaneous. I remember the first time I poked my head in as a young guy in the late 80s. I go, what is this building? What's going on? I heard some artists are here. But I went where there's now a coffee shop, and there was bingo. And you know that phrase, blue hairs? Well, I didn't know that was a real phrase until I went in and saw the bingo players in that space at that time. And I walked around the back, and I think there was still some kind of light manufacturing or boxing going on, and trucks in and out. I'm like, wow, where's the artist? And I went down this dark hallway, and there was mannequins and chainsaws, and I'm like, oh, this must be where the artists are. In the early days, it was pretty punk rock back then. But over time, it happened. And it didn't happen easily or readily, as John has reminded me many times. Many times, our inspectors just didn't get it. But John taught them eventually over time, if teaching is the right word, I think it's the polite way to express it, how you take a very unique space and nurture it into a space that works for very creative people. And it can still be safe. It might not be usual, but it still can be safe. And I think that's a legacy that's carried on. But I don't want this to just be a moment where we talk about folks who did it for the old days, the good old days. They are still so intimately involved. I think of the NEMA, NEAD, working to see what the future will be, and their time, John and Jennifer's time, still being put into that future, the work that it will take to move it into the next generation as a thriving, not shrinking arts district. And again, their gift keeps on giving. I think of the Flux building on Monroe, and a very sad building on Monroe and Lowry, is a taste of the future. With their skill and expertise, they have now enabled artists not to just have a space, but to own a space. And to me, that is the key to preserve our arts district, a sense of ownership, both figurative and literal. But it takes people who know how to do it. John and Jennifer have that gift, and they continue to share that gift. Please come up and receive your well-deserved award.
Well, thank God you're all friends. I am so honored. I'm so honored to receive this award today. It's a privilege. As some of you know, I do serve with the Northeast Minneapolis Arts District, and so I know these people and the volunteers, and they work tirelessly, and I'm honored to work with them. It's been a real joy. John and my dream was launched at the beginning of our love story. In June of 1990, when we met at Maze-Lax at a poetry reading. From there, we began having espresso in my backyard in Northeast, discussing how we might develop a safe place for artists to come to work and to stay. A permanent place. This community embraced that idea. We could not have done our work without the commitment and dedication and trust of the entire Northeast community. I'm especially grateful to a few amazing co-collaborators. Of course, my life and business partner, John Kremer. We imagined and built this dream together. Thank you for taking this journey. The foundation of my strength and desire to help others comes from my parents. They've provided me unwavering support, and it grounds me. Our employees help us every day realize our vision. Without them, we could not have possibly achieved what we have. And they believe in us, they believe in our work, and they truly help us carry out what we believe in. Abdul Karamani, Stacy Krozek, Kendall Bond, Isidro Sanchez, and Tim Kramer. Thank you. Our architect, Tim Gates, whose keen ability to understand our vision has helped us realize the physical space in each of our Northeast buildings. Thank you, Tim. Our banker, Jim Shadko at Sunrise Banks, he believed in us for some reason and gave us our first loan. I'm grateful to him. And our friend and attorney, Sean McElhatton, whose even-handed approach has helped us make countless sound business decisions. And all of our friends and peers in the Northeast community, the neighborhood organizations, the arts organizations, the founders of NEMA, the founders of the Arts District, the current members of the arts organizations in NEMA, the council members in both Ward 1 and Ward 3 have been instrumental. They've been with us the whole time. I look around this room, I see you, I know what you did. You helped us all make this neighborhood a great place. Our work in Northeast Minneapolis Arts District has really only just begun. The Arts District is recognized nationally. Many people and businesses want to locate here now, of course, because it's filled with creative spirits and wonderful people. And capitalism is a force. It's not something you can stop with a dam. So I offer us another solution. Get involved, join me, join the Northeast Minneapolis Arts District, and let's help curate, sculpt what we want this neighborhood to be going forward. I believe in the power of the collective. Let's all roll up our sleeves, join forces together, and make a sustainable arts district where the artists can thrive, they can stay. Thank you again for this wonderful honor.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for coming out on such a stormy night. Great to see everyone. What a great community. That's a hard act to follow. And thank you, Councilmember Wright. Really a moving tribute. I also want to thank people who helped us along the way, which is most of you. People who helped us with their work. Excuse me. Michael made it here. And when we first bought the building in 91, we didn't have much. And most people don't know this story, but it was, again, like the Ritz, about a month away from being torn down from the county. And we had to raise $78,000 in immediately. Then they gave us 10 months to raise $7,800 a month. We had no money. We had no money when we started. And so we were trying our best to make this payment plan. And I called my friend Michael and told him the story. And he said, I'm there. And I said, I don't have any money. He said, I'm still there. He came to work for us. And the rest is history. Abdul Karmani, I don't know if he's here. He was going to be here. He's an immigrant from Kosovo, a great part of our team. He's been my lead carpenter for 20 years. Just a fabulous story. We were doing a building down on 4th and Hennepin, the Oddfellows building. So we moved to downtown Northeast. We called it downtown Northeast. The old timers don't call it that. Because we saw lots of opportunity, and we wanted some buildings that are commercial, not artists. So it helps us with our Art Jones to have these business properties. And we saw opportunity there. And there was this guy I was introduced to who needed a job. He came from the war in Yugoslavia. And I gave him a broom. He spoke no English. I didn't speak any Albanian. And he was ready to quit because I didn't know how to direct his work. And we had a pretty good crew at the time. And I ordered up scaffolding to go into the stairwell. You have companies come out and order up that steel stuff. And they didn't go high enough. So the guys are like, John, you got to call Scaffold Services and get another layer. We need another layer of scaffolding. It's not, it's not going to work. And I'd forgotten, and days get busy. Meanwhile, Abdullah, he went into the basement and grabbed some wood and some wire and made another level. So after 2-3 of those exhibits of skill, true story, I literally went to Barnes & Noble's and bought an Albanian English dictionary. and that was that. I want to thank Tim Gates, our architect on most of the projects, who's here, for his light hand and his ability to tolerate my wackiness. Thank Sean, our lawyer, who can say no to me and talk me off the cliff. So yeah, you pay a lot of money for a lawyer, and then they always disagree with you, but that's a good lawyer who can disagree with you. So it's been a ride. We've had long-term employees. We've had long-term tenants. I see Remo, who was a tenant in the 90s from the warehouse district. We really moved people from the warehouse district up to Northeast. We saw what was happening in the Wyman, the New French, that whole scene with the Target Center coming in, the sports industry, the sex industry, all those things, and it needed a new home. And as chance would have it, my neighbor was a guy who had the Metro beat for the Star Tribune, and he did a story for us. The artists are coming Northeast. Those were back in the days when people read the paper. And for years, people said, "Oh, the artists are coming Northeast. I read it in the paper." It's like, yeah, the artists are coming Northeast. So that helped us on making the $7,800 a month we needed to make. So it really was a team approach. I mean, it really was a community and a bootstrap thing that got us there. Where was I? Long-term relationships, the tenants. Brenda, I see, is here. So we have a lot of tenants who've been tenants since '91. That's our secret sauce. Continuity, community. We don't turn and burn tenants. We've got a lot of people who are still in our building who we put in 30 years ago. All those been many times. Remo's been many times. People leave the building, they come back. So we've got long-term employees, long-term relationships, long-term tenants, long-term community organizations people have talked about with NEMA, with the Biannual Neighborhood Association, the neighborhood groups, the Above the Falls. I'm still stunned at how fast it's all turned. That'd be my takeaway here. I was on the Above the Falls Citizens Advisory Committee in the early 90s when nothing was happening in Northeast and nothing was happening on the river. That this is what's happening now in 20, 30 short years, this fast, this far, it's unbelievable. That's what surprises me, is how quickly it's changed from needing to put in a coffee shop so I could have a place to eat, to having Young Jonies and fish and chips and sample room and et cetera, down there. I mean, it's a tremendous transformation. Now, going into the future, and I'll try to wrap it up, the goal is to be sustainable. How can we have long-term relationships sustainably into the future? So we've got plans, we're working on plans to have succession for the art studio buildings to be sustainable. How can we get more institutional presence in the district to be sustainable? How can we maximize other real estate that's still in the district to keep it sustainable for the long haul? Because we don't need to move again. Artists come into neighborhoods, they renovate them, they do these incredible things. We help out here a little bit, and then they're forced to move on. And we're saying, no, we get to stay. This is our community, and let's set this up so we can be sustainable for the long haul. And what's the next step in that? Let me see what my notes say. How's it going? Young 2020. Yeah. It's the end of the politics. We've got a new group in Northeast, so we're doing new things. It's called Northeast Sculpture. We're placing sculptures throughout the district. So we want to energize public spaces and make this artsy feel 24/7, 365, not just Art World. So moving away from Art World onto other events and making that stronger. We want to add more density and compression to the district. That's what cities that have thriving arts districts have. So it's walkable, pedestrian-friendly, dense, compressed. Long-term sustainable culture, that's what we need to be about. This community is what we are. This is our strength. Let's build it. Thank you.
Great, you did a great speech. Really, really good. Right from your heart. So I wanted to recognize a couple of elected officials in the audience. State Representative Diane Loeffler, thank you for coming. And then the council member for this ward, this is Ward 3, and Steve Fletcher came through the rain to come and say a couple words. And before Josh wraps it up, Steve, if you could come up and say something. And while you're walking up, Jennifer and John, how ironic is it that you're getting the word here in the Ritz, because when the Sheridan neighborhood and the Ritz Foundation were stumbling with remodeling this building, you picked it up, became the general contractor, and finished the job. So what a perfect setting. Storybook. So, Councilmember Fletcher.
Well, thank you very much. One of the most fun things about my job is getting to co-represent the Northeast Arts District with Councilmember Wright. We're a kind of two-person East Side team that stands up for the district, and really love doing that. So thank you for his leadership. I've really learned a lot from him, and continue to do so, and really enjoy working with the whole team of elected officials who all care about the arts here. I'm also just personally really invested in this. I think for me, what makes a city is experiences of the arts that you have, right? We're never going to remember, did we have a Starbucks, how tall was that building, whatever. When you look back, you're going to remember the show you went to, you're going to remember a mural you saw, you're going to remember an experience that you had at a theater with music, with a painting that really moved you, and with the people who are part of your community. And I think as we move forward, remembering what makes Minneapolis Minneapolis, this is something that everybody makes happen, and it doesn't just happen, right? Everybody here is putting in a lot of work. We're giving awards that are so well-deserved for people who have created space for this to happen, because we need art that can find a market in capitalism, and we also need art that never should and never can, but that also makes those experiences real, and there's got to be room for all of that to really make that work. So I'm really proud to be a part of this tonight. I'm really happy to see all of you here. Thank you, each of you, for everything that you do to make the Arts District special, and let's continue to make it a big part of what makes Minneapolis special for a long, long time to come. Thanks.
Our final speaker tonight, again, is our fearless leader of the Northeast Arts District Board, Josh. Can you wrap it up for us, buddy?
Thanks, you guys. This was awesome. It's just amazing sort of thing. And what I always try to tell people, and many of you have heard this story a little bit over different periods of time, is that when this started with Art World, how it's changed so much in different periods through the whole process. And then coming around about 7-8 years ago, we were just sort of like drifting as a community. And I remember, meeting up with Dougie at my studio, and we started having conversations about how can we have an arts district. We really, we have this thing that has been built with Debbie Woodward trying to get the signage and just trying to come together. And then we started to build a board around that concept. And today, with all the people, board members that are here, and I'd like you guys to stand up again. It's really important that we have. These people have made a major thing that happened here. These things don't happen just by happenstance. I mean, to think that just 1 or 2 people start this and then it just sort of mushrooms out from there. There's 70 people, 80 people here tonight. That's a big thing that makes this work. And every time that we add another person, we're adding more energy and more power to our abilities to succeed. And so watching, the people that were honored tonight, how much work they've done to get us to this point. And I think that, one of the people was saying, hey, this is the starting point. This is where we need to get to, because when we first started, there was nothing in general. So now we finally have a platform to start taking off. And if we don't really grab a hold of that, it will just sort of fade. So it's important that you guys show up, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. And I want to put a couple seeds in your mind. So, for us in Northeast, we know the art world. We know the things that are going on here. But really, if you start to think about it, as far as the arts community is concerned, there's the Walker, there's the MIA, and there's the Northeast Minneapolis Arts District. You really can't think about any other 3 legs of the arts community that has really seen itself its rise. And everybody in this room has played a part in that, and it's important that you keep going with it. So, we're going to be having a little shindig next door at the Rogue Buddha, so I definitely want you guys to go there. Margot and Nick, Margot, why don't you stand up, and Nick, if you're here, just raise your hand. So we're starting to work on District 365, where we have something open every day, something that somebody who is not from the neighborhood knows that's going on, and to do this. So they're doing some surveys and trying to get some information out, so please go over there, talk to them, and we're just trying to get a figure out of how that's going to go. So let me think here. There's one other thing I think we have here. We have the Art Influential Picnic on June 21st at the Logan Park. Nick is also spearheading this great adventure. It's a really great thing that's not a meeting. It's about food and just hanging out. And I really think that it's a great way for us to sort of build our bonds together, and it makes a big difference on how we interact with each other. If we know each other, we succeed, and we get better and better at knowing what we're all thinking about. So with that, I will let us go off into the evening, and I appreciate you guys all coming. Thank you very much.